Sarah Martinez stepped off the military transport bus with her single duffel bag slung over her shoulder. The hot summer sun beat down on the concrete parade ground as she looked around at the imposing military academy buildings. At 19 years old, she was one of the youngest recruits in her class, and her small frame made her appear even younger than she actually was. The other cadets barely glanced in her direction as they formed up in lines. Most of them were tall, muscular young men who looked like they had been preparing for military life their entire lives. Sarah, on the other hand, came from a small farming town where her biggest challenge had been helping her father with the harvest each fall. "Martinez!" barked Sergeant Thompson, the drill instructor who would make their lives difficult for the next several months. "You look like you belong in high school, not the military academy. Are you sure you're in the right place?" A few of the other cadets snickered behind her. Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her voice steady. "Yes, sir. I'm exactly where I need to be." The first weeks of training were brutal. While her classmates struggled with the academic portions of their education, Sarah found herself falling behind in the physical training. She could barely complete the required number of push-ups, and her running times were among the slowest in the company. During combat training exercises, she was often the first one eliminated. Her bunkmate, Jessica, was kind enough to offer encouragement, but even she seemed doubtful about Sarah's chances of making it through the program. "Maybe you should consider transferring to a different field," Jessica suggested one evening as Sarah iced her sore muscles. "There's no shame in finding something that's a better fit." The other cadets were less diplomatic. Marcus Webb, a former high school football star, made it his personal mission to remind Sarah of her shortcomings. "Hey, Martinez," he would call out during meal times, "my little sister could probably outrun you, and she's only 12. Even some of the instructors seemed to have written her off. During a particularly challenging field exercise, Lieutenant Johnson pulled her aside. "Cadet Martinez, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I can usually tell within the first month who has what it takes. You're a bright young woman, but this might not be the path for you." Sarah listened to his words, but something deep inside her refused to accept defeat. That night she made a decision that would change everything. Instead of accepting the suggestion to transfer out, she began waking up an hour before Reveille to do extra training. While her classmates slept, she ran laps around the track in the darkness. She sought out additional help from anyone willing to provide it. The academy librarian, Mrs. Chen, noticed Sarah spending long hours studying military history and strategy. "Most cadets just focus on getting through their required reading," she observed. "You seem genuinely interested in understanding the bigger picture." Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "I want to understand not just what we're supposed to do, but why we do it. I figure if I can't be the strongest or the fastest, maybe I can be the smartest." Her dedication began to pay off in small ways. Her test scores were consistently at the top of the class, and she started to excel in the tactical planning exercises. During one simulation, her strategy led her team to victory against a group that included Marcus and several other physically superior cadets. But the physical challenges remained her biggest obstacle. During the final fitness test of their first semester, Sarah barely managed to meet the minimum requirements. As she collapsed at the finish line, gasping for air, she overheard two instructors talking. "She's got heart, I'll give her that," said one. "Heart doesn't stop bullets," replied the other. "She's going to get someone killed if she makes it to a real command position." The words stung, but they also fueled her determination. Sarah realized that proving herself here was about more than just personal achievement. She was fighting for the respect of everyone who had ever been underestimated because of their size, their background, or their appearance. As the semester progressed, small victories began to accumulate. Sarah earned the highest score on the military law examination. Her essay on leadership philosophy was selected to be read at the Academy's annual awards ceremony. She even managed to improve her physical fitness scores, though they remained modest compared to her peers. The real turning point came during a winter survival exercise. The cadets were dropped in teams of 4 in a remote forest area with minimal supplies and told to navigate back to base camp within 48 hours. Sarah's team included Marcus, Jessica, and a quiet cadet named David, who rarely spoke up during group activities. On the first night, Marcus took charge of the group, as everyone expected, but his overconfidence led them in the wrong direction for most of the first day. When they realized their mistake, tensions began to rise. The temperature was dropping, they were low on food, and morale was deteriorating rapidly. "This is all your fault, Martinez," Marcus snapped when Sarah suggested they reconsider their route. "If you hadn't slowed us down this morning, we wouldn't be in this mess." Sarah took a deep breath and pulled out her map and compass. She had been quietly tracking their progress all day and had a good idea of where they actually were. "We need to head northeast for about 3 miles," she said calmly. "There's a stream that will lead us directly back to the main trail." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Right, because you know better than the rest of us." "Actually," David spoke up unexpectedly, "Sarah's navigation skills have been solid all semester. Maybe we should listen to her." Jessica looked between the two options and nodded slowly. "I trust Sarah's judgment." Reluctantly, Marcus agreed to follow Sarah's plan. Her navigation proved to be exactly right, and they reached the base camp 6 hours ahead of schedule. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Sarah felt like she had truly earned her classmates' respect. Word of the successful navigation spread quickly through their company. Suddenly, other cadets were asking for her help with map reading and tactical planning. The instructors began to take notice of her leadership potential, even if they still had concerns about her physical capabilities. As their first year drew to a close, Sarah had transformed from the weakest link in her class to one of its most respected members. Her grades were exemplary, her leadership skills were developing rapidly, and even her fitness scores had improved significantly. But she knew that the real challenges lay ahead. During the final ceremony of their first year, Commandant Williams addressed the surviving cadets. "You have all proven that you have the basic qualities needed to serve as officers in our military. But remember, this is just the beginning. The real test of your character and capabilities will come when you face actual responsibility for the lives and welfare of the soldiers under your command." As Sarah listened to these words, she felt a mixture of pride and determination. She had proven that she belonged here, but she also knew that much bigger challenges awaited her. The small-town girl who had arrived with a single duffel bag was gone, replaced by a confident young woman who had learned that true strength comes from within. That evening, as she packed her belongings for summer break, Marcus approached her. "Martinez," he said awkwardly, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you." Sarah smiled and extended her hand. "We all have a lot to learn, Webb. I'm just glad we're learning it together." As she left the academy for the summer, Sarah carried with her the knowledge that she had overcome the first major challenge of her military career. But deep down, she suspected that this was just the beginning of a much longer journey. 5 years had passed since Sarah Martinez graduated from the military academy, and she had spent every moment of those years proving herself in increasingly challenging assignments. Her first posting had been at a remote outpost where she served as a second lieutenant under Colonel Harrison, a gruff veteran who had initially been skeptical of her capabilities. The outpost was responsible for training local security forces in a region that had been destabilized by years of conflict. It was dangerous work that required not only military expertise, but also cultural sensitivity and diplomatic skills. Many young officers struggled with the complex nature of the mission, but Sarah threw herself into learning the local language and customs. "Martinez, you're spending too much time with the locals," warned Captain Reynolds, her immediate supervisor, during her 3rd month at the outpost. "Remember, we're here to train them, not become their friends. But Sarah had observed that the most successful training programs were those where the instructors built genuine relationships with their students. She continued her approach, and within 6 months, her training unit had achieved the highest success rates in the region. The local forces she worked with showed remarkable improvement in both skills and morale. Colonel Harrison called her into his office after reviewing her performance reports. "Lieutenant Martinez, I'll admit I had my doubts when you first arrived here. You didn't look like the typical officer we usually get, but your results speak for themselves. How would you feel about taking on additional responsibilities?" Sarah's new role involved coordinating between multiple training sites and developing improved curricula for the program. It was her first real taste of command responsibility, and she approached it with the same methodical preparation that had served her well at the academy. She spent weeks visiting each site, talking to both instructors and trainees, and identifying areas for improvement. Her innovations were simple but effective. She implemented cross-cultural training for the instructors, established mentorship programs that paired experienced local forces with new recruits, and created assessment methods that were more relevant to the actual challenges the forces would face in the field. The success of her programs caught the attention of officials at higher levels of command. Within 18 months, she was promoted to first lieutenant and transferred to a position at regional headquarters where she would be responsible for overseeing training programs across multiple countries. The new assignment brought Sarah into contact with some of the same people who had doubted her during her academy days. Marcus Webb, now a captain, was serving in the intelligence section at the same headquarters. During their first official meeting, he seemed genuinely surprised by her presence. "Sarah Martinez," he said with a smile that seemed both pleased and slightly embarrassed. "I heard you were doing good work out in the field, but I didn't expect to see you here at headquarters." Their working relationship was professional, but carried undertones of their shared history. Marcus had grown into a competent officer, but he still sometimes displayed the overconfidence that had gotten him into trouble during their academy survival exercise. Sarah, meanwhile, had developed a reputation for quiet competence and innovative thinking. During one particular crisis, when intelligence reports indicated possible threats to several training sites, Sarah's thorough preparation proved invaluable. While other officers scrambled to develop response plans, she was able to quickly implement security measures she had been quietly developing for months. "How did you know to prepare for this scenario?" asked Colonel Patterson, the regional commander, during the debrief. "I didn't know it would happen," Sarah replied. "But I've learned that the best way to handle unexpected situations is to think through as many possibilities as you can ahead of time." Her performance during the crisis led to another promotion and a transfer to an even more prestigious assignment. Captain Martinez was selected to attend the Advanced Military Studies program, an intensive year-long course that was widely regarded as a prerequisite for senior command positions. The program brought together the most promising officers from across the military, and Sarah found herself once again in an environment where she was often underestimated. Many of her classmates came from military families and had attended prestigious universities. Some had already served in high-profile combat operations that had earned them recognition and medals. Sarah's background seemed modest by comparison, but she had learned to turn perceived weaknesses into strengths. While her classmates networked at social events, she spent her time in the library studying historical military campaigns and analyzing the decision-making processes of successful commanders. Her academic project focused on the challenge of leading diverse military units in complex operational environments. Drawing from her experience with cross-cultural training, she developed a comprehensive framework for building effective teams that included personnel from different backgrounds and specialties. The project advisor, General Roberts, was impressed by both the originality of her research and its practical applications. "Captain Martinez, this work could influence how we approach military leadership at the highest levels. Have you considered pursuing advanced studies in military strategy?" Sarah was flattered by the suggestion, but she was eager to return to operational assignments where she could continue developing her leadership skills. "I appreciate the opportunity, sir, but I think I still have a lot to learn from hands-on experience." Her next assignment was as a company commander at a base that served as a training center for newly commissioned officers. It was a role that brought her full circle, as she would be responsible for molding the next generation of military leaders. The position also represented a significant test of her readiness for more senior responsibilities. The base was known for its high standards and demanding training programs. Previous commanders had included some of the military's most respected leaders, and Sarah was aware that her performance would be closely scrutinized. She was the youngest officer ever assigned to the position, and the first woman to hold the role. Her approach to command was characterized by the same attention to detail and focus on relationships that had served her well throughout her career. She made it a point to know every member of her staff personally and to understand their individual strengths and challenges. She implemented training programs that emphasized both technical competence and ethical leadership. One of her most significant innovations was the establishment of a mentorship network that connected new officers with experienced personnel from various specialties. The program helped young officers understand the broader context of military service and develop the professional relationships that would serve them throughout their careers. Under Sarah's leadership, the training center achieved record levels of satisfaction from both students and graduating officers. Her methods were studied and adopted by other training facilities, and she began receiving invitations to speak at military conferences and professional development events. But perhaps her greatest achievement during this assignment was her handling of a serious disciplinary issue that could have permanently damaged several promising careers. When evidence emerged that a group of officer candidates had been involved in inappropriate conduct, the situation required both firmness and wisdom. Rather than simply applying standard disciplinary measures, Sarah took the time to understand the underlying causes of the problem and develop a response that addressed both accountability and education. Her approach resulted in meaningful consequences for those involved, while also creating opportunities for genuine learning and growth. The incident and her handling of it came to the attention of senior leadership throughout the military. General Morrison, who oversaw personnel assignments for senior positions, requested a meeting with her shortly after the situation was resolved. "Major Martinez," he said, using her newly promoted rank, "your handling of that disciplinary situation demonstrated exactly the kind of judgment we need in senior leadership positions. How would you feel about taking on a role with much broader responsibilities?" Sarah had been hoping for such an opportunity, but she was also aware that it would likely mean leaving the hands-on training work that she found so fulfilling. "What did you have in mind, sir?" General Morrison smiled. "How would you feel about returning to your old academy as the Deputy Commandant for Training and Education? You would be responsible for overseeing the development of the next generation of military leaders at the institution where you first proved yourself." The opportunity was both exciting and daunting. Sarah would be returning to the place where she had been dismissed as too small and too weak to succeed in military service. But this time, she would be returning as one of the people responsible for shaping the future of the institution itself. The familiar sound of cadets marching across the parade ground reached Colonel Sarah Martinez as she stepped out of the staff car at the military academy gates. 8 years had passed since she last walked these grounds as a struggling cadet, and now she was returning as the newly appointed commandant of cadet training. At 35, she was the youngest person ever to hold the position and the first woman to serve as the academy's senior training officer. The academy looked much the same as she remembered, but Sarah herself had been transformed by years of operational experience and progressive leadership roles. Her confident bearing and the respect evident in her escort's demeanor made it clear that this was no longer the uncertain young woman who had once struggled to complete basic fitness requirements. As she walked toward the administration building, Sarah noticed a group of first-year cadets practicing drill movements under the supervision of an instructor. The scene brought back vivid memories of her own early days here, when every simple task had seemed like an insurmountable challenge. Her first official meeting was with Commandant General Hayes, the Academy's overall commander, who had personally requested her assignment to this position. "Colonel Martinez, welcome back. I trust you remember this place well." "Yes, sir. Though I suspect my perspective on it has changed considerably since I was a cadet." General Hayes smiled knowingly. "I imagine it has. When I reviewed your file and saw that you were a graduate of this institution, I knew you would bring a unique understanding to the role. You know firsthand what our cadets experience, and you've also proven yourself capable of exceptional leadership under challenging conditions." Sarah's appointment had not been without controversy. Several senior officers had questioned whether someone so young could effectively oversee the training of future military leaders. Others had suggested that her relatively unconventional career path made her an unusual choice for such a traditional institution. But General Hayes had been impressed by her innovative training methods and her track record of developing successful officers. "Colonel Martinez, I want you to know that you have my complete support in implementing whatever changes you believe will improve our cadet training programs." Sarah's first few weeks in the position were spent observing current operations and meeting with staff members throughout the academy. She quickly identified several areas where improvements could be made, but she was careful not to rush into major changes without first understanding the full context of the institution's culture and traditions. One of her first challenges came from an unexpected source. Sergeant Thompson, the same drill instructor who had questioned her readiness for military service as a cadet, was now the senior enlisted advisor for the training department. He had served at the academy for over 20 years and was respected by both staff and students for his demanding but fair approach to cadet development. During their first meeting, there was a moment of obvious recognition on both sides. "Colonel Martinez," Sergeant Thompson said carefully, "I remember you from your cadet days. You've certainly come a long way since then." "Thank you, Sergeant. I learned a great deal during my time here, including some important lessons about the dangers of underestimating people based on first impressions." The comment was diplomatically phrased, but its meaning was clear. Sergeant Thompson had the grace to acknowledge the point. "Ma'am, I've learned a few things over the years as well. I look forward to working with you." Sarah's approach to her new responsibilities was characteristically thorough. She spent time with cadets at all levels, observing their training and listening to their concerns. She also made it a point to meet with recent graduates who were serving in operational units, seeking their perspectives on how well the academy had prepared them for their current responsibilities. One recurring theme in these conversations was the need for training programs that better reflected the complex realities of modern military service. Many graduates felt that while the academy had provided them with a solid foundation in traditional military skills, they had been less well prepared for the cultural, technological, and ethical challenges they faced in actual assignments. Sarah began developing a comprehensive reform program that would modernize the academy's curriculum while preserving its core values and traditions. The plan included enhanced leadership training, expanded cultural education, and updated technology instruction. She also proposed establishing partnerships with civilian universities that would provide cadets with broader educational opportunities. The proposal generated significant discussion among the academy's leadership. Some faculty members were concerned that too much change too quickly could undermine the institution's proven methods. Others worried that emphasizing modern challenges might dilute the academy's focus on fundamental military values. During one particularly heated faculty meeting, Professor Williams, a longtime instructor in military history, expressed his reservations bluntly. "Colonel Martinez, with respect, this academy has been producing outstanding military leaders for over a century, using methods that have proven themselves in countless conflicts. Are you suggesting that all of that experience is somehow inadequate?" Sarah had anticipated this type of resistance and was prepared with a thoughtful response. "Professor Williams, I'm not suggesting that our traditional methods are inadequate, but I am suggesting that they may be incomplete for the challenges our graduates will face in the 21st century. We can honor our traditions while also adapting to changing realities." To build support for her reforms, Sarah arranged for visits from recent graduates who could speak to current cadets about their operational experiences. She also brought in guest speakers who could provide perspectives on emerging security challenges and technological developments. One of these visits proved particularly powerful. Major Jessica Chen, Sarah's former roommate, who was now serving as a military advisor in a complex diplomatic environment, spoke to a group of senior cadets about the importance of cultural understanding and communication skills in her current assignment. "When I was here as a cadet, I thought success meant being able to lead soldiers in combat," she told the audience. "And that's certainly part of it. But in my current role, I spend more time building relationships with civilian officials and international partners than I do planning military operations. The Academy gave me a strong foundation. But I wish I had been better prepared for these kinds of responsibilities." The presentation sparked intense discussion among both cadets and faculty, and helped build momentum for Sarah's reform initiatives. Within 6 months, the Academy had approved a modified version of her modernization plan that included several pilot programs designed to test new approaches to cadet education. The most visible symbol of the changes Sarah was implementing was her decision to revise the Academy's Honor Code ceremony. The traditional event had always emphasized duty, honor, and country as the fundamental values that should guide military officers. Sarah proposed adding a fourth principle: adaptability. "The world our graduates will serve in is changing rapidly," she explained to the Academy's Board of Visitors during their annual review. "While our core values must remain constant, our ability to adapt to new challenges and opportunities will determine our effectiveness as military professionals." The addition proved popular with cadets, who appreciated the recognition that they would need to be prepared for a wide range of unexpected situations. It was also well received by recent graduates who felt it reflected the realities they faced in their current assignments. But perhaps Sarah's most significant contribution during her tenure was her handling of a crisis that tested both her leadership skills and the Academy's commitment to its values. When allegations emerged that several cadets had been involved in academic misconduct, the situation required careful investigation and decisive action. Rather than simply applying standard disciplinary measures, Sarah established a comprehensive review process that examined not only the specific allegations, but also the broader cultural factors that might have contributed to the problem. Her approach resulted in meaningful consequences for those who had violated Academy standards, while also implementing systemic changes designed to prevent future occurrences. The way she handled the crisis earned praise from throughout the military establishment. General Morrison, who had become the Academy's chief of staff, commented that her response demonstrated exactly the kind of thoughtful leadership the military needed at all levels. As Sarah's third year in the position began, the results of her reforms were becoming evident. Cadet satisfaction surveys showed significant improvement, graduation rates had increased, and feedback from operational commanders indicated that recent graduates were better prepared for the challenges they faced in their first assignments. More importantly, the Academy had successfully modernized its approach to leadership development while maintaining its commitment to traditional military virtues. The institution was attracting more diverse candidates and producing graduates who were prepared to serve effectively in an increasingly complex security environment. During the Academy's annual alumni gathering, Sarah found herself surrounded by former classmates who were now serving in senior positions throughout the military. Many of them commented on the positive changes they had observed during recent visits to the institution. Marcus Webb, now a lieutenant colonel serving in a strategic planning role, approached her during the reception. "Sarah, I have to say, what you've accomplished here is remarkable. You've managed to honor the best traditions of this place while also preparing it for the future." "Thank you, Marcus. I think we've learned that change and tradition don't have to be in conflict with each other." As she looked around the room at her former classmates, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since their cadet days. The small-town girl who had once been dismissed as too weak for military service was now shaping the future of military education itself. But perhaps more importantly, she had proven that true leadership comes not from conforming to others' expectations, but from having the courage to chart your own course while remaining true to your fundamental values. The academy that had once doubted her potential was now being transformed by her vision of what military education could become.